you're right. Okay, sir. Well, welcome everyone. What a great day to be a tree. Wouldn't you agree? Welcome to an extremely, very special day in the Highway of Heroes tree campaign history. Our journey down this highway is 5 years long, and today I would have to say would be the pinnacle of our campaign. And of course, that's largely in part to the fact that you're here and that you're helping to make it that way, and you have made it the success that it is. We are so delighted to have you here, and a special welcome to the Prime Minister of Canada, the Right Honourable Justin Trudeau, the Honourable Lawrence Macaulay as well, Minister of Veteran Affairs, to the Mayor of Whitby, Don Mitchell. I'd like to say thank you very much to you as well. Others I'll introduce along the way, but as we plant trees today to honor those who fought for us in our military, it's appropriate as we gather here at Intrepid Park, a site that once was home to the legendary Camp X, the secret paramilitary training base for covert agents during the Second World War. We're also just over 1 week removed from the 75th anniversary of D-Day and the Normandy landings. 359 Canadians were killed on D-Day alone, and more than 5,000 would sacrifice their lives during the 2.5 months of fighting in Normandy. Most of these fallen heroes still lie buried in France. However, the Highway of Heroes Living Tribute creates a new memorial in their honor right here on Canadian soil. During the Afghan conflict, 159 Canadians lost their lives for the price of freedom. Each Canadian lost was flown to CFB Trenton, just down the highway, repatriated here on Canadian soil, and driven by hearse down the 401 to the coroner's office, 170 kilometers. That's the length of the Highway of Heroes at Keele Street in the 401. The stretch of highway was forever changed in the minds and hearts of Canadians and for others worldwide. A unique Canadian story that was born in our hearts, the citizens of Canadians. Canadian citizens who brought flags and often waited for hours for a procession to pass so that they could quietly show their respect for their fallen heroes and their grieving families as well. The Highway of Heroes brings together Canadians as few things can. This is what inspired a small group of tree huggers to convert into what it will be the world's largest living memorial. We are planting 2 million trees, 117,000 of those most prominent trees right on the right-of-way of the Highway of Heroes, one tree for each life lost at war since 1812. And over 1.8 million more trees in the communities that flank the highway, one for each Canadian that volunteered for military service during times of war since 1812. We have some very special guests here. I'd like to welcome the following for taking time out of their busy schedules. Tony DiGiovanni, a member of our board over here, hands up. Tony hatched the idea. So if you wouldn't mind a round of applause. It's his idea. We blame Tony. And Tony DiGiovanni, the executive director of Landscape Ontario, really truly deserves the credit. We're sitting around a boardroom table, 14 tree huggers, and we were thinking about what we could do to double the urban tree canopy. 2 years of spinning our wheels, and Tony puts up his hand and he says, why don't we reforest the Highway of Heroes? Thank you, Tony. To Michael DePassier and to Donna Cansfield, who are also board members and unable to be here, volunteers as well for the Highway of Heroes tree campaign. We could not do it without them. To our staff, Mike Hurley, Rebecca Harrison, and David Turnbull, thank you, all of you, for all the work you have done so far, of course, for the work that you've done today, but for getting us to this juncture. And here is the most important thing, with my apologies to our friends from Ottawa, but the most important thing, our private donors. I estimate, knowing number of the people that are here today, that over $1.5 million in cash and pledges are represented by the people in attendance here today. Sorry that I can't mention you all by name, but you do know who you are. The truth is, we would not have a campaign. We would not be celebrating with our special guests from Ottawa today if it weren't for you. Thank you, donors. And thank you as well to our volunteers, hundreds, couple thousand at least, that have shown up to plant trees on numerous tree planting days like this. To our valued sponsors at Volvo and Mac, to our veterans and current members of the Canadian military, including those that you see in uniform today from the 32nd Canadian Brigade Group. To, yes, a round of applause for them, please, would be great. To Don Mitchell, the Mayor of Whitby, to our local MP, Selina Caesar Jevin, and to the Honorable Lawrence Macaulay, Minister of Veterans Affairs. I am quite proud also, of course, to welcome the Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau. A big thank you to all of you. To plant 2 million trees is no small task. To complete this project, we'll need to reach our goal of raising $10 million by 2020, which is not that far away. To plant today's event is made possible by the Government of Canada and our generous sponsors. The first partnership I want to highlight is one that is helping us to take significant steps closer to realizing our goal of planting 2 million trees on and near the Highway of Heroes. Here to speak a bit more about their support of the Highway of Heroes tree campaign, I'd like to please welcome Leo Hawks, Managing Director for Volvo Financial Services. Leo.
Good afternoon, everybody. The Volvo Group, together with all our dealers and our customers and employees in Canada, today are represented by a few folks from Volvo Financial Services, Mack Trucks and Volvo Trucks, and the Volvo Construction Equipment business. We feel truly privileged to have this opportunity to acknowledge the sacrifice made by Canadian servicemen and women. The Highway of Heroes tree campaign is very important to our group. Our customers travel and work along this highway every day. We also strongly believe in the preservation of our environment and minimizing our carbon footprint. Most importantly, the supporting of Highway of Heroes tree campaign allows us to show our gratitude to those who served. To our employees in attendance today, thank you for your contribution. Thank you for participating in this event of remembrance and acknowledgement. To all Canadian servicemen and women, on behalf of all of us at the group, thank you. Thank you for your service to our country. Thank you for allowing us to participate and take part in this living tribute to your service and sacrifice. Thank you.
Thank you, Leo. Very much appreciated, with our thanks to Mack and Volvo Trucks. The community here in Whitby and Durham region are no strangers to the Highway of Heroes. Many who live here line the bridges to show their respect during the Afghan conflict. Our next guest represents the community here in Whitby. It's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Don Mitchell.
Mr. Prime Minister, Minister Macaulay, Corporal Kerr, members of our Canadian Armed Forces, Mark and your Highway of Heroes tree campaign team, our generous sponsors and honored guests. Welcome to Intrepid Park, which borders Whitby and Oshawa. It's also the home to Ian Fleming, who trained here, which actually makes it the birthplace of James Bond. And I am pleased to be joined here today by John Henry, who's the chair of the region of Durham, and by a number of members of council, Councillors Newman and Alexander and Leahy and Shahid. Thank you all for being here, as well as our CAO in Whitby, Matt Gaskell. As Mark mentioned, Whitby residents and residents across Durham region have lined the bridges for years, honoring those who fell and who were traveling the Highway of Heroes. And this living tribute is certainly the most wonderful way to continue to honor those and to honor all who served. So I want to thank you, Mr. Prime Minister, for your generosity, your government's generosity, and your leadership for this campaign. It's most important and most appreciated. And together, we will grow a forest of pride and a forest of memory. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Worship. Not only are we creating the largest living memorial of its kind in the world, we're also putting the trees where they're needed most. This stretch of the 401 sees more traffic than any other stretch of highway in North America. These trees will filter toxins from our water, or from our air, from our water, provide habitat for local wildlife, and their service will continue to increase for many, many generations. We're not doing this for ourselves. We know that. We're doing it for our children, for our grandchildren, for their children. Trees provide a better future for Canadians. We could not be happier with our Canadian government and that they understand that. Here to speak a bit more about Canada's commitments to invest in the environment and to honor our veterans, it's with great pride and thanks that I have the pleasure to introduce the Prime Minister of Canada, the Right Honourable Justin Trudeau.
Good morning, everyone. Before we begin, I want to especially thank Corporal Nick Kerr and Minister Macaulay for being here today. And of course, thank you all for joining us. As some of you may know, I had the honor of traveling to Europe to mark the 75th anniversary of the Battle of Normandy. It was an incredibly moving few days and a chance for Canada to not only remember the sacrifices of our veterans, but also to reflect on their proud legacy. On the battlefields of Europe, Francophones, Anglophones, Indigenous peoples, New Canadians all came together as one. And they have since inspired countless young people to answer the call of duty like they once did. Une chose qui m'a frappé lors de mon voyage, c'est la façon dont les cérémonies étaient des événements intergénérationnels. Des membres des forces armées qui aidaient des anciens combattants à marcher le long de Juno Beach. Des jeunes qui exprimaient leur reconnaissance et qui partageaient des histoires familiales. These testimonies brought into sharp focus how one's decision to serve can have a lasting, positive impact on so many others. It was a beautiful sight, a tribute worthy of those who gave so much for us. But recognizing the courage of our servicemen and women, remembering the sacrifices they made and the values for which they fought, shouldn't be something we do just when a big milestone comes around. In fact, I think it's really important that as Canadians, we create more opportunities, both big and small, to say thank you. The Highway of Heroes is a beautiful way to do just that. And that's why our government is so proud to support this initiative. With our latest budget, we committed an additional $2.9 million in funding through Veterans Affairs to see this project through. The Highway of Heroes is a chance for all of us to express our gratitude and celebrate the many contributions of service members, both at home and abroad. But the desire to help the most vulnerable, to better our world and heal its woes, does not stop once they return to Canada or retire. Many of them never stopped answering the call to serve, no matter where they are or what they do. Take Corporal Nick Kerr of the Canadian Armed Forces, for example. In addition to serving in Afghanistan and being a primary reserve member with the Canadian Scottish Regiment, Corporal Kerr volunteers with so many organizations to support his fellow service members. He helps them transition out of the military. He helps them find a job or learn a new skill or access services available to them. But Corporal Kerr also works incredibly hard to make sure that those who never returned home are forever remembered. In November 2016, he organized an event to remember a former colleague who took her own life while serving in Afghanistan. He also adopted a section of the Highway of Heroes with some friends, and he continues to play an active role in the Highway of Heroes living tribute. Corporal Nick, thank you. You are an inspiration to us all. A tree for every hero. I cannot think of a better way to remember the spirit and the selfless service of our men and women in uniform. With every tree, we will remember those who made the ultimate sacrifice and think of our brave service members who continue to represent Canada with unparalleled integrity, valor, and perseverance. And as we remember them, we remember also their families, who in so many ways sacrifice along with them, their communities who support them, extraordinary organizations like the ones we're celebrating here today who continue to step up. And mostly, we thank those who continuously step up and look to serve their country in ever greater ways. Merci, mes amis, d'être ici avec nous aujourd'hui. Thank you all for being here today. It's a beautiful day for Canada. Merci.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Well, thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. The support that we receive from the Government of Canada puts us on a trajectory of success. We can see a light at the end of the tunnel. We have over $7.5 million of the required $10 million to get the job done. So our success, I think, is almost undeniable, although we still have lots of work to do. Canadians from coast to coast to coast have work to do. And we also want to thank all of you and our valued sponsors like Volvo and Mac. What a great investment you have made, I think. We have more special guests that have joined us today, and to help us to remind us why this cause is so important to veterans, their families, and the entire military community. Here to speak more about this, I'd like you to please welcome the Honorable Lawrence MacAulay, Minister of Veteran Affairs. Sir.
Thank you very much, Mark, and good afternoon, everyone. Prime Minister, colleagues from the Parliament of Canada, Mayor Mitchell, distinguished community leaders, members of the Canadian Armed Forces, and veterans. What a beautiful day to be doing this. I'd like to start by thanking the Prime Minister for his kind words in the announcement and very touching words he had to say about the veterans and the Canadian Armed Forces. I would also like to extend my thanks for Volvo Mark Group for their support in this incredible campaign to honor the brave men and women who saved our country. And it's truly an incredible campaign, planting 2 million trees, one for every Canadian who served our country. A campaign that allows us to honor the service and sacrifice of 2 million heroes. Now, I think most of us would ask ourselves, who are these Canadian heroes? Well, they're the men and women from every part of the country, from every walk of life, and from every background. They step up to defend their country and our values like freedom, democracy, and human rights. They put their lives on hold for our democracy. They are people like Corporal Nicholas Kerr. Now, I'm sure for those of you who have been involved with the Highways of Heroes project certainly know Corporal Kerr, but for those who don't, I think it's important that I say a few words. Corporal Kerr has made a huge contribution to this living tribute. After serving with Canada's mission in Afghanistan, he made helping others his next mission. He has participated in nearly 20 Highways of Heroes events, sometimes driving for hours or flying from Edmonton to right across the country. He also volunteered countless hours working with veterans, young and old, new recruits, and fellow comrades. He's done all of this while he served as a reserve member of the Canadian Scottish Regiment, Princess Mary's. So if you don't mind, I would like to take a moment to present Corporal Kerr with something. Nick, if you could just come up here. It is my honor to present the Minister of Veterans Affairs commendation to Corporal Nicholas Kerr, the highest honor I can give as the Minister of Veterans Affairs for Canada, and it's a great honor. Thank you very much. A great honor for myself to meet and to be able to do this for a great Canadian hero.
Well, how about that? Thank you, Prime Minister and Minister Macaulay, and of course, Corporal Nick Kerr, who is going to say a few words. Nick, would you do that?
Well, I'm sorry, I didn't have anything really written for this, and it was kind of a shock that I was told that I was going to be awarded this award. I'd just like to thank everybody for coming out, Mr. Prime Minister, Mr. Veterans Affairs Minister, all the other dignitaries and VIPs. Above all, I just want to thank everybody for coming out and supporting what this campaign means to me and what it means to Canada, and especially our veterans and serving members. And when we all are done talking, I'd like to see some people come out and plant some trees.
Well, those of us that have come to know Nick through our campaign, who was there, by the way, for the very first planting in Whitby some years ago now, we're enormously proud of you, Nick. So congratulations and bravo. Thank you for your dedication to our campaign from day one and for the service that you've given your country. And Nick, you know, it's not just you. It's the men and women in the Canadian military currently serving, have served in the past, volunteered during times of war, and have lost during times of war. It's all of those people that you represent we also want to say thank you to today. So thank you, Nick. Well, it's been suggested that the men and women lost at war for Canada died on the mantle of freedom. Well, we're planting a mantle. It's made of oak, maple, fir, pine, over 30 native species. To answer the #1 most question, what is it you're planting on the highway? All native species. We will remember them. We are creating a memorial that grows, blossoms, produces oxygen. It captures carbon, and it captures the imagination of Canadians for generations to come, I'm quite sure, and of course those more than 3,500 people that have supported us. A living, breathing tribute to the greatest of all Canadians. This is our right. This is our privilege. This is our duty. And here's news. When we're done planting the last of our 2 million trees, which we hope you'll join us for, Mr. Prime Minister and Mr. Macaulay, perhaps in your next term, come and plant that last tree with us. We would be delighted to have you there. Trees for Life will continue our pursuit for a cleaner future by doubling the urban tree canopy. We haven't forgotten about it. We still plan to come back to it. And finally, on decisions. I believe that the Prime Minister and that the Minister of Veteran Affairs make a lot of decisions in their day. And perhaps this is one decision that every one of us can look at and say, that was the right decision. Thank you so much from every Canadian. So we're going to start planting trees. And before we do that, we're going to have all the people that have spoken, a number of other people. Mike, you're going to help organize this for an official tree planting ceremony over here, and as we wrap up the day. Thank you again, everyone, for coming. Please join us over here. Bring your cameras, and thank you again.